I want to ask you a question, and I really want you to be completely honest with yourself here. When your alarm goes off, what actually gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, that is a big question for this early.
I know, but think about it. Is it some like grand world-changing mission, a burning desire to leave a legacy, or is it realistically just the smell of coffee and the fact that, well, you have to pay rent?
I mean, for most of us, it's definitely the rent. And the coffee helps.
Exactly. And it's a heavy question, but it's the exact question we are tackling today in this deep dive.
Yeah, and it's something we've all probably wrestled with at some point.
Right. So today, we are tearing through decades of longevity research, some really startling health data from remote Japanese islands, and these incredibly insightful essays from top psychiatrists. We're doing all this to decode a concept you have almost certainly seen floating around the internet.
Oh, absolutely. You can't avoid it.
It's called Ikigai, which is a Japanese word generally translated as a reason for being.
And what is just wild about this topic is the sheer size of the gap between what the internet thinks Ikigai is and what it actually means in Japanese culture. I mean, it is staggering.
It really is. So here's our mission for this deep dive. We are going to decode the true meaning of Ikigai. We're going to separate the ancient, grounded Japanese philosophy from those, viral hustle culture internet memes.
Right, the ones that just stress everyone out.
Exactly. And we're going to extract the actual practical tools from our stack of sources to help you live a longer, more meaningful life without making you feel entirely overwhelmed.
Which is the trap most of us fall into, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
The minute we start talking about life purpose, we make it so massive and consequential that it just becomes paralyzing. But to truly understand the mechanics of Ikigai, we can't just look at philosophical theories.
No, we need hard data.
Right. We have to look at the biology and the habits of the people who are actively living it. We
Mm.
need to travel to Okinawa, Japan.
Right, because before Ikigai became a self-help buzzword in the West, it was essentially just a lifestyle observation.
Exactly. So Okinawa is the standout among what demographers and researchers call the blue zones.
And just to clarify for everyone, blue zones are...
Oh, right. They are these 5 very specific regions globally that have incredibly high concentrations of centenarians. So people living past 100 years old.
Got it.
And the data on Okinawa, specifically from the Okinawa Centenarian Study, which was actually funded by Japan's Ministry of Health, it is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, the numbers and the sources are crazy.
They tracked over 600 centenarians and found that Okinawans have 80% less heart disease than Westerners.
80%.
I know. And they have a quarter less breast and prostate cancer, half the risk of colon cancer.
Right.
And this is a statistic that really gets me.
What's that?
They spend 97% of their incredibly long lives completely free of disabilities.
97%. I mean, that is the dream, right? Because in the West, longevity often just means spending your last 2 decades managing chronic illness in a hospital bed.
Yeah, just extending the decline.
Exactly. They aren't just living longer, their health span matches their lifespan. So, mechanically speaking, how are they doing it?
Well, it comes down to a few core daily habits that fundamentally alter their biology. First is what researchers call natural movement.
Natural movement, so not going to the gym.
Right. They aren't doing high-intensity interval training or, hitting the gym to run on a treadmill for an hour, only to sit at a desk for the next 10 hours. Their movement is baked into their very existence.
Like what, exactly?
They garden daily,
Mm.
and their homes have very little furniture, so they sit on tatami mats on the floor.
Which sounds completely mundane until you think about the physics of it.
Precisely. The simple act of getting up and down from the floor dozens of times a day, that builds incredible core strength, balance, and flexibility.
It's basically a ton of mini squats.
Exactly. It's constant, gentle, low-level physical exertion. And that keeps the joints lubricated and the cardiovascular system engaged without spiking cortisol levels like a grueling workout might.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this all sounds idyllic, the gardening, the gentle movement, but I have to push back a little on how transferable this is to you, the listener, right now.
That's fair.
We're looking at this Okinawan concept of natural movement, but let's look at the reality for someone living in, say, a typical American suburb. Our cities are practically built to prevent natural movement.
They really are.
They lack walkability. You have to get in a 2-ton metal box just to buy a carton of milk.
Right.
And that lack of walkability often creates food deserts, which limits access to fresh food, which virtually forces a sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a systemic issue.
Right. So if I'm sitting in a car for 2 hours a day commuting, how on earth do I replicate Okinawan natural movement?
This raises an important question. Yeah. And you're absolutely right to be skeptical. You cannot simply copy-paste a culture.
You can't just throw out all your furniture and expect to live to 100.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to adapt the underlying principles. If you can't walk to the grocery store, well, can you engineer natural movement into your house? Can you take your phone calls while pacing the backyard?
No, that's a good idea.
Can you ditch the ergonomic desk chair for a floor desk for an hour a day?
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding micro-opportunities for movement. And, that adaptation applies to their social structures, too, which are arguably even more vital than the physical movement.
You're talking about the Moai.
Yes, the Moai. A Moai is a lifelong social support group. In Okinawa, groups of about 5 children are traditionally paired together, and they make a literal commitment to each other for life.
That is so wild to me. 5 kids just locked in for life.
Yeah. They meet regularly to gossip, share advice, and even pool financial resources. If one person has a medical emergency or a bad harvest, the group takes care of them. Some of these Moais have been meeting for over 90 years.
And the biological impact of that is huge, right? Because it's not just about having friends to grab a drink with. It's about having an actual safety net.
Exactly. When, on a subconscious level, that you will not end up homeless or starving because your Moai has your back, it virtually eliminates the chronic low-grade stress of isolation and financial panic.
Which is basically the baseline emotion for most people right now.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And chronic stress, from a biological standpoint, keeps your body flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. That causes massive inflammation.
Yeah.
We know now that chronic loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
That stat always gets me. 15 cigarettes.
It's terrifying. So Moai is essentially an anti-inflammatory social structure.
So again, adapting the principle. You might not have a lifelong Moai that pools money, but you can schedule a weekly standing walk with 3 neighbors. You can build intentional reliance.
Yes, exactly. Small steps.
And that leads right into another huge piece of this longevity puzzle, the diet. The sources mention they eat a plant-heavy diet, averaging about 18 different foods a day. But the real secret weapon isn't necessarily what they eat, but how they eat.
Right.
It's a simple phrase they say before meals. Hara Hachi.
Hara Hachi. It translates roughly to eat until you are 80% full. It's an ancient Confucian teaching. And the biological mechanism here is absolutely brilliant.
How so?
Well, your brain's satiety receptors are about 10 to 20 minutes behind your stomach's actual capacity.
Oh, so it's like turning off the sprinkler system while the lawn still looks a bit dry, knowing the water already in the pipes is going to finish the job?
That is a perfect analogy. When you stop eating at the exact moment you feel 80% full, 20 minutes later, your brain catches up and realizes you're actually 100% full.
That makes so much sense.
By doing this, the average Okinawan man consumes about 1,800 calories a day, compared to the American average of over 2,500. It prevents the metabolic strain of digestion overload and cellular oxidation that ages us prematurely.
It's intuitive calorie restriction without the misery of a fad diet plan. So the West looks at this, the health, the longevity, the profound lack of stress, and predictably, we desperately wanted to capture this Okinawan magic.
Naturally.
Which brings us to the blockbuster book that really set this whole Ikigai trend on fire globally.
Right. Hector Garcia and Francesca Murals. They traveled to Ogimi, a small village in Okinawa with the highest concentration of centenarians, to actually interview the 100 oldest residents.
And the result was their massive bestseller, Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life.
A hugely influential book.
Yeah, I'm looking at their chapter breakdowns, and they distill a lot of what we just discussed: staying active, the anti-aging benefits of little habits, the Ikigai diet.
Practical stuff.
Right, but they also bring in some deep psychological frameworks. They talk about wabi-sabi, embracing imperfection, and staying calm during difficulties. And they position Ikigai alongside 2 major Western psychological concepts.
Viktor Frankl and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Yes. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy and Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow. And I have to be honest, I'm a bit lost here.
How so?
Well, how does Frankl, who developed logotherapy while surviving the horrific suffering of a concentration camp, fit into an Okinawan elder peacefully pulling weeds? It feels like a massive contrast.
It does seem like a massive contrast, but the connective tissue is profound. Frankl's logotherapy argues that humans are not primarily driven by the pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain, but by the pursuit of meaning.
Okay, meaning.
Even in the darkest possible circumstances, if a person can find a why to live for, they can endure almost any how. What Garcia and Morales observed in Okinawa is the everyday, gentle application of that exact same truth.
Oh, I see.
These elders don't retire to sit on a beach and pursue endless comfort. Comfort doesn't keep you alive. Meaning does. Having a garden to tend, a great-grandchild to teach, or a role in the village that keeps their biological drive active.
And what about flow? That's that state of being so completely absorbed in a task that you lose all track of time.
Right, and flow is biologically fascinating. When you enter a flow state, whether you are painting, coding, or carefully pouring tea, your brain's default mode network actually quiets down.
The default mode network.
Yeah, it's the part of the brain responsible for self-doubt, anxiety, and ego. When it quiets down, you literally lose your sense of self. And that perfectly mimics the Okinawan sense of presence.
That is fascinating.
True happiness, they argue, isn't found in achieving a massive goal. It's found in the frictionless absorption of the task itself.
Which all sounds incredibly poetic and grounding. But if you, our listener, search Ikigai on the internet right now, you aren't going to find pictures of Okinawan elders finding flow in a garden, and you aren't going to find Viktor Frankl.
No, you definitely are not.
You are going to find a highly structured, brightly colored Venn diagram.
Ah, yes. The famous four-circle Venn diagram. It is inescapable.
It completely dominates the internet. If you haven't seen it, picture 4 overlapping circles. To find your Ikigai, according to this diagram, you have to find the dead center intersection of 4 things.
Right.
Number 1, what you love. Number 2, what you are good at. Number 3, what the world needs. And number 4, what you can be paid for.
I mean, it's incredibly satisfying to look at. It feels like a perfect mathematical equation for a successful life.
But I'm going to be honest, I look at that diagram and I do not feel a sense of Okinawan peace.
What do you feel?
I feel anxiety. It feels like a stressful corporate performance review. If my Ikigai requires me to figure out a way to get paid handsomely for my deepest passion, while simultaneously saving the world and being a top-tier expert at it, doesn't that directly contradict the simple, low-stress Okinawan life of drinking tea and pulling weeds?
What's fascinating here is your intuition is exactly right. That Venn diagram, which millions of people believe is an ancient Japanese secret, is actually a complete Western fabrication.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
It is entirely made up. The story behind it is almost conical.
No way.
Yeah. So in 2011, a Spanish astrologer named Andres Zuzunaga created that exact 4-circle Venn diagram to explain his own concept of purpose. It had absolutely nothing to do with Japan or Ikigai.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2014. An entrepreneur and blogger named Mark Wynn was writing a post. He had just watched a TED Talk about longevity in Okinawa and the concept of Ikigai.
Oh no, I see where this is going.
He remembered Suzunaga's purpose diagram, so he took it, literally erased the word purpose in the middle, and slapped the word Ikigai right in the center. Wynn recently confessed that this took him exactly 45 minutes to do.
45 minutes. And he just copy-pasted a Japanese word onto a Spanish astrologer's chart.
Yes, and that single blog post went viral. It was shared billions of times, it was used in corporate HR seminars globally, and it permanently altered the global perception of what the word Ikigai actually means.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because actual Japanese authors and researchers have been trying to correct the record ever since.
They've been working overtime.
Seriously. Yukari Mitsuhashi, who wrote an excellent critical book on the subject, points to a study of 2,000 Japanese people. In this study, 75% of them said they had found their Ikigai. But when asked where they found it, only 31% said it had anything to do with their work or career.
Exactly. Traditional Japanese Ikigai has absolutely nothing to do with being paid. It is not monetized.
Think about what that means. We took this quiet, peaceful philosophy of daily joy, and the West completely hijacked it.
We turned it into a hustle.
We turned it into hustle culture. We basically said, hey, your hobby isn't good enough unless you can monetize it and scale it globally to serve the world. It's so deeply ironic.
It really is the ultimate Western spin.
So let's clear the slate. If Ikigai is not the intersection of passion and capitalism, what is the actual psychological definition from the Japanese perspective?
Let's start with the etymology, the roots of the word itself. It combines iki, which means to live or daily life, and kai, which means worth, value, or fruitfulness.
So the value of daily life.
Literally, yes. It is the value or worth you find in your daily existence. To really understand how this operates mentally, we should look at Miyako Kamiya. She was a pioneering Japanese psychiatrist who wrote the foundational 1966 book On the Meaning of Life.
And she approached this very differently than Frankl did.
Right. She did. While Frankl looked at extreme suffering to find meaning, Kamiya focused heavily on everyday life. She worked as a psychiatrist with leprosy patients, so she understood suffering. But she also observed normal, healthy daily existence.
Right.
She coined the term Ikigai-kan, which refers specifically to the mental state or the feeling of Ikigai. It's the emotional resonance of having something to look forward to.
Just having something to look forward to. I love that.
And what's interesting about Kamiya herself is that her personal Ikigai was writing. But she didn't dedicate herself to it full time until she had fulfilled what her friend called her 3 M's: medicine, marriage, and motherhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It wasn't an all-consuming monetized career path from day one. It was a flame she kept lit alongside a full, multifaceted life.
So if Kamiya proved that Ikigai is an everyday feeling, how do we actually categorize that feeling? Because surely finding joy in making a cup of tea isn't triggering the exact same psychological mechanism as finding joy in raising a family or writing a book.
That is precisely what the Japanese psychologist Katsuya Inui explored. He broke Ikigai down into 3 distinct buckets, and it shows just how broad this concept really is.
Okay, what are the buckets?
First, Inui says there is social Ikigai. These are things widely accepted and praised by society, like volunteering, raising a family, or being a community leader.
Makes sense.
Then there is non-social Ikigai, which are deeply personal and have no relation to society's demands. Things like religious faith, strict physical self-discipline, or a private hobby you never show anyone.
But the third category is the one that really stopped me in my tracks when reading the sources. Antisocial Ikigai.
Right. It sounds contradictory, but Inui points out that dark emotions like a profound hatred or a burning desire for revenge can technically function as an Ikigai.
Wait, really? Revenge?
Yes, because remember, Ikigai is biological and psychological fuel. If an individual's sole reason for waking up in the morning, their absolute driving motivation that keeps their heart beating and their mind sharp, is to seek revenge against someone who wronged them, that is their Ikigai.
That is wild.
It brings them a morbid sense of purpose. It triggers the dopamine and adrenaline required to keep moving forward.
That is dark, but it perfectly proves the point. Ikigai is just the fuel. It isn't inherently a shiny, happy corporate buzzword. It's just the why behind your existence.
Exactly. It's morally neutral in that sense.
Though, obviously, we want to aim for the positive side of the spectrum. Which brings us to Ken Mogi, a Japanese neuroscientist who wrote The Little Book of Ikigai. He essentially strips away all the Western career advice and gives us 5 pillars of true Ikigai.
Mogi's 5 pillars are really the antidote to the stress of that viral Venn diagram. We won't walk through all of them, but a couple really stand out.
Yeah, which ones?
One pillar is release yourself. This is about letting go of your ego. You do a hobby just to do it, not to be the best at it, and certainly not to show it off on social media.
Just doing it for the joy of it.
Right. And another pillar is the joy of small things. Literally just savoring the taste of your lunch or feeling the morning sun on your face.
This makes me think of a school janitor.
How so?
Well, according to the Western Venn diagram, a janitor is failing at Ikigai. They might not be deeply passionate about mopping floors, and society might not pay them highly for it. But if the janitor loves chatting with the students in the morning, if they take quiet pride in creating a safe, clean hallway, or if they just really look forward to going home and watering their bonsai tree for 20 minutes, isn't that Ikigai?
Exactly. That is a perfect example. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Mogi and Mitsuhashi are telling us is that true Ikigai is fundamentally democratic. It is accessible to everyone right now, regardless of your tax bracket. You don't need a promotion to have it. You don't need a life-changing epiphany. A janitor can possess a richer, deeper Ikigai than a billionaire CEO who is constantly stressed about their legacy.
It's a rich spectrum of small things. It completely takes the pressure off.
It does, and Garcia and Morales point this out in their book as well. The centenarians in Okinawa aren't stressed about their life's grand overarching purpose. Their purpose is interwoven with their daily, mundane tasks, their friends, and their environment. It's walking to the neighbor's house, it's weeding the garden, it's cooking the meal.
So if you're listening to this right now, maybe sitting in traffic on your commute or folding laundry in your living room, what is the actual takeaway for you?
It's a good question.
If we zoom out and synthesize everything we've looked at today, from the incredible longevity data in Okinawa to the 45-minute Venn diagram mix-up, what does this all mean?
The takeaway is that you have likely been sold a highly stressful, monetized version of a very peaceful philosophy.
Yes. To live a long, happy, meaningful life, you do not need to perfectly align your career, your deepest passions, your skills, and the world's most pressing needs into a single, highly paid job. That is a myth.
It's a recipe for burnout.
Exactly. What you actually need is much simpler and much older. You need a Moai, a few good friends you can truly rely on to lower your biological stress.
You need Hara Hachi to eat mindfully, understand your biology, and stop before you're stuffed.
Right. You need natural movement woven seamlessly into your day. And psychologically, you need to cultivate an appreciation for the small daily joys that quiet your ego.
You can have a totally average, boring job that just pays the bills and still have a vibrant, deeply fulfilling ikigai in your garden, in your kitchen, or in your neighborhood.
You don't have to change the world. You just have to be fully present in your own.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, lay it on us.
We know authentic ikigai thrives on connection, presence, and the joy of small things, like Ken Mogi's example of carefully making your morning tea. But we are rapidly moving into an era where AI and automation are promising to optimize our lives by stripping away all of our most mundane daily tasks.
Well, that's true.
So if technology removes the friction of daily chores to give us more time for grand achievements, we have to ask in the future, will we actually have to fight to keep our chores just to protect our ikigai? Are you willing to let your purpose be small?